Welcome to Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation. The go-to podcast that helps you access intuitive guidance combined with mental health and spirituality. Let your intuition guide you and unlock a life of true liberation. And now your host, Becc Nelson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Intuition Unleashed. I am your host, Becc Nelson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, author, spiritual guide, etc., etc. And I have a very kindred spirit on with me today. I have Bessie Estonactoc, and the reason that she's a kindred soul is because everything I just said plus more is the way that we can describe Bessie, because Bessie was also a former licensed therapist. And this might be another show entirely, because we need to kind of compare notes, Bessie, and say, why former licensed therapist? Because I have my own thoughts about that as well. But Bessie is a Sacred Deathcare guide. And that's going to be the topic of our episode today. But in addition to that, she is so much more: a hypnotherapist, a spiritual mentor, I believe a Reiki teacher, a master, but also a teacher. And she helps women navigate life transformations and trust their intuition, transform their relationships with life and death to create meaning and wholeness. And I don't know if anybody knows this or not yet, but she has a book coming up that's due to come out around Easter of next year. The upcoming book, The Soul Rising Within. And we're going to talk about that during our session today. And welcome, Bessie.
Thanks, Becc. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. It's been a while, and it's so wonderful to be connected again.
So Bessie, I was trying to figure this out. We've probably met about maybe 5 years ago. I think it was during COVID.
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe earlier. I don't know. But
5 years. Wow.
Yeah, that went by fast. We were in a lot of the same practice circles and that sort of thing. And I remember that we connected very well because of so many. And now I'm seeing all the things that we have in common, although hypnotherapist is something that I would love to add to my resume as well. But today, you need to come on again after this, because there are so many awesome things that you can teach us about intuition and how to help it guide your life in a way that's a blessing for you. Today, I saw a post that you did about the death of your mom and how you process that. So today we're going to talk about reframing death and transitions through ritual healing and spiritual practices. Yeah. And this is something I think a lot of people can relate to. So I do want to get to that social media post. And a lot of times that's how I ask somebody to come on, because I'm like, that's exactly what my audience needs to hear more of. And I think a lot of those that are so poignant come from our own personal stories, because when we talk about who our ideal clients are, usually it's us, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So to start off, I ask all my guests this. There's usually a time in your life where the universe hands you sort of an unexpected opportunity to grow, although at the time it may not have felt like that. It may have felt like, why does this happen to me, and that sort of thing. And at the time it didn't feel like a gift, but afterwards you realize at some point in your life that it was a gift. It shaped your path and purpose, and it did offer you an opportunity to grow. So you have a similar example you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I think besides my mother and my relationship with her, my relationship with my father was really it was an eye-opening experience. Um, there's a whole I have to come back on Becc, but I'll just
Oh yeah, please.
yeah. So what the turning point that happened was my relationship with my father. I had a tough relationship with my dad, and there's just a lot of background about that. But as he was declining in his own health, I didn't want to hold on to any blame, guilt, anything like that, because for me, it felt like I don't want to have any regrets with my father, you know? And forgiveness was so, so important. So for me, I had to slowly let go of that. And then um, when he was actually, um, I knew that he was going to pass soon. Uh, I knew intuitively that he was afraid to die. I just knew it. He was holding on. And when I was called, I lived like 2 hours away. When I was called to say that it's almost time, I drove to Fairfield and I was by his side the entire time. I didn't know how to hold space for someone who was dying, but I just knew that I was supposed to be there. And so I just, held his hand, stroked his shoulder, stroked his heart. And I said, "Oh, it's okay, Dad. It's okay to go. It's okay to go." Yeah. And so I just really massaged his heart the entire time, really. And, his breaths were few and far between. And I just kept on saying, "Dad, you're safe. Just look to the light. You're going to be okay." And so, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I just knew that I had to do it. And so he took his last breath, and I felt his body just kind of like, I mean, his spirit just leave. And that to me was a sacred gift to offer my father and to me. But that was just like the start of all things. And that was a long time. I was like, I don't know, 25 years ago,
Oh,
30.
wow.
Yeah, 30 maybe. Yeah.
So you were sort of new into this experience at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what I think for me, I'm very much of an empath, very intuitive, and I know I feel spirits, I can see them, I just have this sense of them. Um, but we were in our family, we don't talk about death, and I think for a lot of families and society and culture, we don't talk about death and what happens after death. And so for me, the this was the time of I'm trying to really understand where do because our bodies are our physical vehicle to live this life, to live the best life I feel that we can in relationship to others. And when we can allow ourselves to be in this physical body, to have good relationships, and that's tough, right? But that's our lessons to learn with others that we can leave our physical bodies, allow our spirits, our soul, to go on to the next life. And I like to say, and this is what I was taught in when I was in the Sacred Deathcare, and we'll talk about that. But we have our body and we have our soul. Our bodies go back to the land, and our soul goes to the next phase of their life. And so it's honoring, we have to honor both. We can't just say, okay, okay, they're gone. No, it's like, how can we honor those that have gone before us in a way that they have contributed something to our learning, to learning right relationship, hopefully, and to be good with ourselves and to be at peace because living with no regrets and our last breath is, I think, so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So important. Yeah. So my dad was my teacher. And yeah,
In that moment.
in that moment, yeah.
Now, do you feel like you've been able to have kind of conversations with him since then, since that experience?
I do, but I feel this is from Bessie. I feel he's still learning. He's in another school, in another realm, still learning. So I feel like our he came in to my life with my mom to be my teacher. I feel him sometimes. There are times that sometimes we talk to each other, but not as much as my mom. I was closer to my mom. It was interesting because I think the day after Dad passed away, I was on one side of the bed and I felt him sit on the other side of the bed. I mean, when you feel that,
Yeah,
and then I turned around, of course, there's no one there, but I knew it was my father. So, I can feel his presence. And sometimes when I actually go into meditation or channeling, however you want to do that, put that, there are times where I actually notice and feel his presence. So, I know that he's definitely around. But my mom is more around than my dad because I was closer to my mom. Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
So many people will say this, right? When I'm reading for someone as well, mediumship reading, they'll say, oh, I wasn't really close to my dad or we didn't get along. And they have a different perspective once they move on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is more of that compassion and love. I mean, I think it's important to understand that we all have stuff and my dad had stuff that he went through growing up as a child. And I think understanding that, I think for me was important to know because he would tell me about his how tough it was to be, a kid. His father was really tough on him. There was definitely some abuse that happened. And so I really feel that that's why, and that's where the forgiveness for me came into play because I really had to look at his soul to really understand, okay. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I like, the phrase that always hits for me is hurt people hurt people.
Mm.
And they can only do, or we can only do as much as we've learned and grown at that point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was for me, it was to be able to be by his bedside until his last breath was such it felt, it just felt like completion in a lot of ways to know that I could sit there. There was that forgiveness. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for being my teacher. There was just, yeah, it was just really a beautiful, beautiful thing. I didn't expect it.
You know what, Bessie? I'm sitting here, as you're saying this, and I'm sure our audience is too, reliving being there for my own father, who we also had a difficult relationship, and being there during his passing. And you just brought me right back to that place.
Mm, yeah.
How many people are watching this with tears in their eyes, because you're absolutely right. You use the term hold space, which is a term that we use in our businesses here as spiritual teachers. And I'm sure that that's also a big part of what you learned in your Sacred Deathcare training.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So, I did my practicum for my master's in hospice. And I was looking at death doula courses, but none of them really resonated with me. But they're all, I mean, really, it's just beautiful work that death doulas do. It's just, and you have to have that to take care of all of the different parts of what to do when they're dying, expecting, when that's going to happen, all those kind of things. What I love about Sacred Death Care, it was more of a spiritual. I was so drawn to it because it was very spiritual. Um, but it also allowed space to understand how we have to take care of the body and soul together. So and I'll give an example. Like I mentioned, I feel my mother, I see my mother, she speaks to me. I knew that uh, I was going to be able to connect with her. But see, sacred death care, there's some practical things also about the energy. of completion, of being able to be in right relationship with death.
So this was a conversation that you actually have with her?
Oh yes. Yeah, yeah. So can I go into that? And this will give some, or what would you like to?
Oh, no, that's so you're
Okay.
gonna, so this is the story of when during the time that your mother was and you're preparing for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but just to give a little bit of more of a description, Sacred Death Care allows you to have rituals for I don't know how to even explain it. Rituals with the dying person, rituals even after they've gone, to allow this awareness, especially if you're afraid of death and are even afraid of talking about death. You want to be able to help make the dying person comfortable, right? And so with Sacred Death Care, there's open conversations that you can have about that. Uh, and it really, like I said, it's having that relationship, not just with your loved one, but that right relationship with feeling okay to talk about death with them. Because we don't talk about death. And I want to leave the legacy of my family members, everybody, to know that death is a part of life. Life is a part of death. And we if we can look at living life with more love with for one another and really being in right relationship, if possible, it can all happen. Then you can leave this physical life with no regrets. So sacred death care is learning how to be able to allow the body and soul together to be honored. And Western culture, it's been tough to really even talk about death, to be, the dead bodies, it's like we want to be able to honor those that have passed on, honor those, and not be afraid of who who they were in this life to you, and being able to allow them to pass on to it's called the land of the ancestors in sacred death care. They're going to be an ancestor for us, and how beautiful is that? Yeah.
Okay. And how long ago was this experience with your own mom?
Okay, so my mom passed away 13 years ago,
Okay.
and she came to live with my husband and I in Hawaii the last 7 years of her life. um it was hard in a lot of ways, but because I was working, my husband was working, but we were in the sandwich generation.
Hmm.
My mom, my daughter, our daughter was still in college. And so there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of stress about, oh, and my husband actually was laid off twice.
Oof.
Yeah. So there was a lot of stress about how are we going to do this because mom needs our care as her health was declining. What really was important for me was that my mom was helpless. She's just her I can see the decline in her health so visibly. For after a while, she couldn't even sit up by herself. Her body was just like this. There was just no energy in her body. So she was slowly, deteriorating. I had to have conversations with her. I had to open up my throat chakra, allow the love from my heart chakra to have this compassion for her, to talk to her about death. I mean, truly talk to her about death and have her aware about, how she was declining. I mean, conversations like little opening conversations, because being in a Filipino family, we don't talk about that stuff. But I just kind of like paved the way of like, we need to talk about it. It's important. It's important. And I wanted her to not be afraid. So we would have little conversations about death. One day she said to me, Bess, I'm afraid to die. And I said, Mom, I promise I will be with you until your last breath. But also know that we're still going to be connected after you die. We're going to be able to talk to each other. You're going to be okay. I promise. And so once I said that to her, she took agency and ownership to call the funeral home, to have a lady come over to the house.
Huh.
She chose her beautiful urn. She chose the music and the flowers that she wanted to have. There was some ownership about that. And how beautiful is that, right?
Yeah.
To know that this is what I want when I die, you know? And it was like she was slowly getting there, slowly just having the hardest time with many things physically. And what happened was she said, I want to stop all my medications. And so we took her to the doctor. The doctor placed her in the hospice bed. And you just don't know. I mean, there's so many different things about hospice. Some people live 6 months, some people live 1 week, some people live 1 day. There was this surrendering that had to happen on me and my husband's end about we are here and present for mom to take care of her. We don't know when it's going to be her last breath, but we're going to be here for her. 5 days later, I think it was 5 days later, the hospice worker called and said, Bess, your mom wants to talk to you. So mom got on the phone and she said, Bess, come over. It's time.
Wow. 5 days.
Yes, 5 days, five
Like
days.
you're like, I'm not ready for this today.
And it's like, how the heck do you know? You don't know until you know, right? She knew. And so I dropped everything, went over. My husband came over. It was just he and I in Hawaii at the time. Everybody else was on the mainland. So we were calling everybody for mom to say goodbye. Mom got on the phone. There was some FaceTime that we did. Mom wanted to have the last rites, so we called the priest to come over. And yeah, so it was just really, it must have been like morning time on a Wednesday on the 22nd of August, morning time. And so, all these conversations, and mom was just quietly, in her space. Um, I gave her Reiki, um, and she's so funny. She's mom's such a caring person, always just worried about everybody. She said to my husband, this is on her dying bed, right? Jack, I hope you find a job soon. In true form, I know. In true form, she says that, and Jack goes, I know, Mom, I will. It'll be okay. So, I still remember that. It still makes me smile when I think about that because that's mom in true form. And then after a while, she was quiet. She was quiet. And I gave her Reiki. I had frankincense, so I was giving her Reiki in her heart and her hands, just preparing her body, right? Allowing her body to relax. We're ready to, leave. Um, and then all night, all night, she was just breathing slowly, no more talking, breathing slowly. And I'll talk about it after the break, but what happened was the next day, 5:30 in the morning, the roosters were crowing in Hawaii, the sun was rising, and mom took her last breath. She took her last breath. And I'm so happy again that I was with my mom to be able to be with her. And little did I know that this is really part of my soul path, part of my soul path.
It, you mean to be able to do this work and assist other people with this
Yeah.
process?
Yes. Yeah.
So at the time, you had not had the training in the sacred death care, but it seems when we talk more about it, it seems like you've now come to understand that a lot of what you were doing is a part of that.
Yes. Yeah. There was one part that was missing, and I can talk more about that later. But yeah, yeah. Um, we did a lot of things, that we held vigil for her, uh, family members connected with her, to say their goodbyes. Um, I gave her Reiki. I was doing the things to be able to honor her and love on her. Um, and that was just, you know, I can't even give the words to that.
Like I said, I know that everybody who's experienced this is reliving that in their minds right now. But what you also talk about, which we can, we'll talk about when we come back from the break, is that you recognized after your mother's passing that there was some incompletion that still lived in her body, in your body after your mom's transition.
Yes.
And so part of there's a proxy body ritual that's a
Yes.
part of the process and the rituals, and that's a part of the sacred death care.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break, and then how this is all related to and is going to be coming out as a part of your book coming out in the spring, The Soul Rising Within.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So when we come back, everybody, we're going to hear the next part of the story that Bessie learned and is going to share with us after the break. Hey, everybody, welcome back from the break. We're here with my guest, Bessie Estonactoc, and I am Becc Nelson, and we're talking about sacred death care rituals and how it differs from traditional grief counseling or hospice, and why and how Bessie was called to this work. Bessie was actually, before the break, telling us about the experience with the death of releasing her mother during her death. And the way that you put it is that you felt in your body that there was a piece that you didn't realize that was still there for you after your mom's death. Can you talk a little bit about how you noticed that and then how it led to what you do now?
Yeah. During my training, um, with sacred death care. And remember, we want to be able to it's really honoring the body and the soul together, right? I felt like I did that with my mother, by doing the rituals that I did with her when she was dying and when she did die. Um, and then, connecting with her via spirit, right? But I even though I helped my dad to pass and I helped my mom to pass, there was this fear of dying, fear of death and dying that was still living within my body. And when mom passed away, and I remember distinctly, when she took her very last breath, um, or maybe even the last hour, really the last hour, I wasn't by her side. I wasn't stroking her body. I wasn't holding her, nothing. It was like waiting with bated breath. When is it going to happen? And there was like this, there was this tension inside of me. there wasn't this relaxation. And I was sitting, against the wall in a chair, and then she took her last breath. Now I felt her touch my right arm, and she said thank you to me. And I love that. But I didn't go and um, touch her body. I did not, stroke her like I was when she was, in active dying phase. And what was most important is that I didn't put the blanket over her head. That was the I think the most important piece to say goodbye to her body.
This is something that you learned in the
Yes. And because it's like it's important because I felt that when she said that, I said, "Oh my gosh, I was in such shock that I didn't do any of those things, but also there was this fear still in a lot of ways about a dead body, which is really weird. It's my mother, right? It's my mother. But still, that the being able to place the blanket over her was really, really important. So I did the proxy body ritual. I did it the August 22nd this year. Um, I reenacted it. I actually had the some pillows that were like her body. There was a picture of her that was showing. And I did the last hour, placing my head on her body, stroking her arms and her heart and touching her feet, um, and just saying the things that I wished I could have said when she was, when before she took her last breath. And come to think of it, I did that with Dad, which is interesting, right?
I was going to say that you did
Yeah.
you talked about stroking his heart
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yes, yes, but maybe because I was closer to my mom, I don't know, maybe that's just what's coming up. But and then when her breaths were few and far between, and I re knew that it was coming, reenacting it, um, I she took her last breath, and I kissed her forehead, I kissed her cheek, I touched her hand, I touched her body, and I said, "Goodbye, Mom." And when that happened, there was this shift. It was interesting. It was like not just for me, but that I was able to feel reenacting it, feel whole, that I did something that I regretted not doing then that I did in this proxy body ritual. And it was really unfinished business.
That, but you did not have that same feeling with your dad because you feel like you had done
Yeah,
something.
which was yeah, and it's really interesting because um yeah, very, very interesting. And it's interesting that we even bring it up right now. But I think maybe because mom was already ready to die. I don't know. Dad wasn't, and I had to really be actively there with him.
I say.
That could be the distinguish points between the two of them. Um, but I didn't put the sheet over dad
So
either.
did you also go back and reenact that with your father?
I I haven't been inclined to do that. I felt like it was complete.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are things. So when you had this training, you actually were able to identify some of those things sitting in your body, and that you needed to go through this ritual to help find some.
Yes. Yeah, with mom especially. And I as I think about it, I was very close to my mom, very, very, very close. And like I said, more than my dad in this life. She was definitely my teacher in this life. And there was definitely regrets about not having done that with her because we were so close. It's like how could I? So I think the piece really here was more about being in the sacred death care realm is understanding that I had to do this ritual with my mom in order for me to feel complete in my body. It was because there was regrets about that, about not having done that with her, especially because we were so close. So, and I think that's maybe the defining factor about that, that was something intuitively, energetically that I needed to do for me to feel whole and complete within me.
So you're also saying that this is not for the person who's passed on. They're not think something was incomplete. This was all within you, the living person here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They
Yeah.
don't need that. You
No.
you needed that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us for other people that are listening to this who might be in this situation or have, probably need to do this, they're feeling like they're incomplete. Can you tell us some ways to practically use the proxy body ritual?
Well, see, for me, I mean, it's very intuitive. It's really looking at what is important for you to do because I had to really think about what would be, do I want to do it like one day before? Do I want to do it 1 week before? And for me, it landed that doing the last hour was really important. And it's important to really create the intention of why you want to be able to do this. If there is some incompletion, this is just one of them. And really being able to make sure that, I mean, I had to make sure my husband wasn't around, that you're in a quiet space, that this is really going to be a vigil. I mean, you're reenacting everything. And so I had flowers by my mom's bedside. So even things that are important, for them. There's this Mother Mary statue that was my mom's. I had it, by the bedside. Um, I had a beautiful picture of her, that was on the headpiece, right? And the blanket to cover the pillows. You just have to make it a very sacred, intentional time where you're not going to have any interruptions and that you're going to do this with whatever your intention is. Mine was what was not complete? What did I not say to her? What did I not do that for me was important to feel complete and whole within me? And you just reenact those times, hugging, stroking. I mean, I had this really soft blanket that was on the pillow. So I would, stroke the blanket, and just really feel that it was her. And being able to do that in real time reenacting, is something that energetically is so, um, what is that word? I can't think of the word.
Cathartic, healing.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah. And when when she doing that piece of saying whatever you needed to say that you didn't say, even asking for forgiveness or forgiving yourself. I mean, those things are just so important. There's something about that energetically that you can release that's very healing. Um, but most importantly, saying goodbye to the body, placing that blanket or sheet over the person's head, the face, is that final saying goodbye.
Oof. And you afterwards feel like you felt that release in parts of your body where you were holding things.
I did, my heart. Yeah, I felt it definitely in my heart chakra and my throat chakra for sure. Heart and throat chakra. There was definitely this release and this sense of completion that I had when I did that.
Oof. I can't even think about it because, you probably feel very weird, like I'm using these pillows and she's been gone 13 years, but this was very important for you. This is for you to release, not her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it energetically, I think it was important for me to be on this path of understanding how we can't just say, oh, we're going to connect via spirit, da 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 da. Da. We also have to honor her body in saying goodbye.
And the final with the pulling the
Yeah.
sheet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like you're giving her permission, like you're giving yourself permission to say goodbye to the
Yes.
body.
It's most importantly giving the grieving person the ability to say yes, goodbye to her body.
This could probably also apply to animals.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So this is also this is also your inspiration for your book, The Soul Rising Within.
It is, as I'm writing this book, as I'm continuing to write this book, we all go through transitions in life. You know, when I went from, single to married, married to children. At 49, I decided to go into getting my master's. Um, I mean, and then I changed careers. I mean, we all go through transitions in life. And what I realize is that when we can follow our intuition, and that's why I call it soul rising, because we have this spirit, in our bodies, we have our spirit, but we have our soul. And our chakras are actually like floppy disks of information in our bodies. And so, and I'll just talk about my mom as an example. I was aware initially that I wasn't talking about death to my mom, right? And it was important for me to notice that in my body that, oh, I'm not very grounded about even sharing this. But I had to really just kind of like know what was my purpose? Why did I need to do this? I wanted her to feel comfortable dying and knowing that she was dying and be prepared for it. But I also wanted to be comfortable too. So we both learned from each other. But as I allowed myself to become grounded more, to understand that I need to have her feel more courageous. So I'm going to lend her some of that from me and learn, how to be able to just allow my soul and spirit to rise above anything that I was afraid, right, to even say or do, to know that this was important. And so we go through so many transitions. And this one particular situation with my mom allowed me to really understand how I was really rising above my fear of death to be present with her, to help her, take her last breath.
And her own fear of death.
Yes, and her own fear of death. Yeah. And we all go through transitions. It could be, oh my gosh, like you said, a death of a pet, or even changing careers. I mean, rather than holding on to the fear of, oh, I don't know, I don't think I can do it. our soul our intuition is nudging us. And that's how we're learning. It's like taps on the shoulder from spirit about, gosh, rather than being in fear and anxiety about this, let's look at this. What is your intuition nudging you to really look at? You know, it could even be a marriage that's, you're having issues in a relationship. That's a transition. What is your soul nudging you to be able to understand so that you can be in the right relationship with yourself and your loved one? So many things. And so soul rising is about rising above the egoic fear so that you can listen to your intuition and allow yourself to rise above any fears or anxieties that you're feeling so you can grow, because we're here on this earth to grow.
Okay, that's a lot.
Okay. It's
During
like
the break, during the break, we talked about how people do not or avoid talking to their loved ones who are actively dying. We avoid talking about death with them, thinking that, that's rude or we don't want to upset them, but really they need to talk about it, and they're not talking about it because they don't want to upset us.
right.
And
Yeah.
so we're actually giving them a gift by, as you said, rising above that fear of what will happen or can I talk about this? We have to rise above that because that's really what they need
Yeah,
in that moment.
it's a lonely journey to know that you are dying and that you have people around you that are afraid to talk about it, you know? So you're giving them a gift when you can um, even slowly have opening sentences about death, you know? Um, oh, so and so has just passed away and they're having a celebration of life. And you know what? She doesn't want anyone to wear black. She wants everyone to wear colorful, clothes, just openings of things like that, I think
Mhm.
are, ways to be able to just talk about it, you know? Yeah.
So if we're talking about some practical guidance for our listeners, these are things that we can begin to do to support loved ones that are passing away, or even those that we see our friends that are going through it, etc. How to basically show up, how to be present, how to hold space, the terminology that you used before. And that is to begin to talk about death without that lump. Because when I think about it, my throat chakra is feeling blocked. But you're saying take a deep breath and be able to speak about those things.
It's so important because I think we have been so in the Western culture, I mean, all of the Eastern cultures are not like this. It's the Western culture where it's like, okay, someone's dying, let's have a funeral and then they're going to be buried. It's like, how about honoring them, and honoring them even before they die by, I mean, there's rituals that you can do by even having maybe family members together with the dying person and making it like joyful, like holding their hands and saying, "Oh, beautiful memory that I have about you and I together is," and celebrating those kind of things. And that, can you imagine if you had 10, 20 family members doing that with the dying person, how beautiful that would feel for that person and for the family to be able to acknowledge them like that. That's a beautiful thing.
So if people are who are watching this are grieving and they feel like they have some unfinished business, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, gosh, um, the Proxy Body Ritual is a great one, and I explain that here. Um, Maybe even writing a letter to that person and anything that's in their heart and mind that and soul that they didn't get to share, they can do that. And you can uh you can burn it after that or shred it. I mean, cathartically, that's important to be able to release anything that maybe you have not been able to share with them. Um, I mean, there's so many different things. I can guide you through hypnotherapy where you can connect with your loved one, and you can do some release. Um, I have here, you see, you can't see the pictures of my mom and dad, but I have a flower on my altar, and I come to my altar every day and I look at my parents and I say thank you for being my teachers, my ancestors, being able to just offer them because they are on the other side. They've been our teachers, our ancestors. Those are things to be able to know how to be able to honor. Now, if it's been a rough, really rough relationship, I think these things are maybe easy to do in some ways. But if the relationship has been uh, trauma, very traumatizing, maybe abuse, I mean, those are things that for me, I'm not a licensed therapist. That would be someone I would have to assess if that's something that a licensed therapist would have to, take care of. But um, there are some things to be able to slowly and comfortably allow them to feel safe. But I've worked with clients that have gone through their own work already, and they're ready to take this to the spiritual side, to be able to just know how to be able to have the tools to be able to release. But it's a fine line, and I have to stay in my lane, right?
Well,
Um,
you have your talk a little bit about your Art of Spiritual Living program.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So ART is an acronym, ART, Awareness, Release, Transform. I've done that all my life, in hindsight. When you're aware of things that are going on that you have fear and anxiety about, right? And or you're noticing, God, there's a lot of anxiety or fear about this. Like for me, it was fear of death. When there is that awareness and you really want to be able to heal that, it's becoming more conscious and finding the tools to see what's coming up in the forefront, right? When you can do that, we use some tools to be able to learn how to be release. And for me, with death, I've done it with a proxy body ritual. I mean, forgiveness, things like that. Transformation is the ultimate piece of how can you really live with trust and clarity that you're being good with yourself, you're trusting your intuition, and you're not having any regrets living this life with yourself and with others. So that's ART, and I help anyone who's going through a transition, and right now it's with Sacred Deathcare, to really be right with the body and soul.
So it sounds like that's probably the answer to something that you'd like every listener to remember from this conversation. That's come up a bunch. Body and soul
Yes,
need to both be
yeah.
honored.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to be able to read this. I think this is really in closing. As you step back into your day, may you remember that death is not to be feared, but honored, and that every breath is a sacred chance to live more fully, love more deeply, and leave with no regrets.
Oh, that That's beautiful. I've had chills throughout this whole time together. Thank you so much for coming on. And so if listeners want to connect with you, we actually, she actually has a chakra alignment quiz that's a part of the show notes that they can get for free. And then you're going to give them some feedback from that. And they could also from there schedule some time with you.
Yes. Yeah, they can. So take the chakra quiz. You'll get the results from the quiz. Go in and schedule a free discovery call with me, and I can go over your quiz, any tips to be able to help you maybe strengthen the chakras, the particular chakras. But we can also talk about, what's coming up in your life that you may need support with. And I'd love to be able to have a conversation with you.
And of course, your book coming up in the spring that we're looking forward to.
Yes, Soul Rising.
And that's very exciting. So if anybody wants to connect with Bessie, her connection, the way to connect with her is in the show notes. And I want to thank you for being on with us today. Bessie, thanks for making the time over there on the West Coast from the East Coast.
Yes, thank you, Becc. Thank you so much.
And everybody just remember that when you unleash your intuition, you reclaim your power. So everybody join the revolution. Thanks so much, Bessie.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Intuition Unleashed. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. But before you go, we have one little challenge for you. Most of us have sneaky little habits that hold us back and trip us up, so why not take this not at all uncomfortable quiz to find out what you do to derail yourself from achieving your goals and how you can call yourself out on your own BS. So get to know your self-sabotage specialty and take the first step towards getting out of the way of your own success. Just visit https:/becknelson.com/quiz and take the quiz now. That's becknelson.com/quiz, and we can't wait to see your results. As always, we'll be back next week with more Intuition Unleashed. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.